Hello, my name is Reese Schultz, and I'm just going to be doing a quick demonstration slash tutorial about the Max Liquid system. This was introduced in 3ds Max version 2018, so it's pretty new, and it's a really fun, fairly simple, fairly lightweight way to do decently accurate fluid simulation in 3ds Max. So, to start off with, first thing we're going to need is a box, because the demonstration that I'm going to be doing is just going to be a little bit of water is just going to fall onto the box and splash off of it. A pretty simple demonstration of what it can do and how to use it. So I've got the box, change that to different color. Give me 1 second, there we go. And the way you can find it is going to be in your geometry tab, just change it from standard primitives all the way down to fluids. So it is right here. That's the magic button that you're looking for. And if you drag it out just like anything else to introduce it into the world. So obviously if I want it to be bouncing off the top of the square, I need it actually above the square. And I want it to be close but not too close. I want a little bit of lead-in time before it starts splashing off of it. So here's where it is. Like I said, this is the emitter for it. So you can't actually control any of the actual aspects of the liquid from the emitter. You just change what it is, what shape it is, its size, all that sort of stuff. Where you actually are going to be doing the majority of the tweaking of the various variables, changing how it looks, how it interacts, it's going to be under here. Under the Setup tab, Simulation View. This is the window where you're going to be making all your major changes to the system itself. So you have a bunch of tabs, you have a bunch of stuff. Up here where it says Liquid 01 and Solver 01, this is going to be a list of emitters. And with each emitter you can assign different liquids to it. And then you have a bunch of tabs underneath it. This is where most of the action is going to be happening. So you have liquid attributes, you have solver parameters, caching, display settings, and render settings. So going from back to front, render settings is actually going to be dependent upon what renderer you're using. I'm not going to be doing any rendering today. I'm just going to be showing you how to tweak the variables. But this is going to be how it displays itself to the renderer that you're going to be using. Display settings, this is decently important depending on what sort of computer you have. You may have more or less capacity for actually showing the fluid in your renderer. So this allows you to tweak that so that you can manipulate things a lot more easily without freezing hiccups or anything like that. Me personally, I have a pretty decent PC, so I'm going to set it to Bifrost Dynamic Mesh. That's going to be the most complete, shows you the actual volume of it. If you don't have that, the one I recommend is going to be Point. That's a pretty good one for just seeing the basic outline. Caching, this is important for your memory usage. Simulating fluids takes up a lot of memory. So this is where you're going to be setting your cache, setting all that sort of stuff, because once it actually simulates it, it stores that information in cache. And so this is where you're going to be actually putting all that information so you can access it. Solver parameters. This is where most of the action actually is. This is where all the various variables come together to tell the computer how to simulate the liquid that you're wanting. And liquid attributes is also pretty important. This is actually where I'm going to start. So like I said, we're going to be dripping a little bit of water onto this cube and having it splash off. Now, by default, Max Liquids does not interact with any geometry. It assumes no matter what you have in the scene, it is going to assume that it's open space. You have to tell it what you want it to interact with. So that happens right here. This is colliders. And obviously, I have a collider ready for it. So just pick it, boom, done. You can also add it by name. Kill planes. Kill planes are super important if you're doing longer scenes with much more extended animation. You want to put these planes that you can put in your scene space where if any particle comes into contact with it, it deletes it. very, very important and very, very useful for managing your memory. So we picked our collider. Now we've done that. We're mostly done here. We shouldn't have any reason to come back to this during this. Just keep this in mind for setting up the scene. This is where you're going to be wanting to do that. Solver parameters. So this is, like I said, this is where all the important stuff is. Simulation parameters, liquid parameters, emitter objects. Obviously, the emitter object, we already have that sorted out. Collision object, we already have that sorted out. Kill plane objects, we're not going to have to worry about that. We're not going to be doing too in-depth of a animation today. Guide system foam parameters, we're not going to be doing any foam, we're just wanting water. So in that, we manage that in the liquid parameters. So right here are a bunch of presets. Honestly, I haven't come across too many situations that weren't handled by just its presets, so we can just set it to water and be done with it. That said, I want to go over a little bit of this with you. Droplet, that controls how much it's going to spray everywhere. Particle distribution controls, obviously, the particle distribution. Vorticity is the little vortexes that occur in a lot of fluids and liquids. Surface, all of this information, I don't expect anyone to know it off the top of their head, but you can find this information in Google, and you should be able to find, like, water surface tension. That's an easily Googleable one. Viscosity, water viscosity, that's an easily Googleable one. So if you are having trouble with any of these, do some Google foo. You should be able to find most anything. Apart from that, tweaking these little variables back and forth is a great way to just get the look that you're looking for. Honestly, for this, I'm just going to preset it to water and be done with it, but just know you can go in depth and change anything about how the particles are going to behave. So this is how it looks. Simulation parameters is how it works. Under all this is all the little details about how accurate you want to simulate. If you have some monstrous supercomputer Hollywood render farm at your disposal, you can simulate it very, very finely and very, very accurately. So the way this works is off of voxels. So what it does is it separates the space into basically a grid, a 3D grid, and operates the simulation off of each of those points in the grid. So the voxel size is the #1 variable for that. It is just telling the computer, this is how the resolution that I want to simulate it at. By default, it's at 5. I find that's actually really good unless you're getting some super up-close shot. Gravity magnitude, unless you're doing something off Earth, it should always be 9.8. So the solver properties, voxel size is the big one. If you are having trouble actually simulating something in a reasonable amount of time, increase the voxel size. If you find that you're not getting the resolution that you want, decrease the voxel size. This is your master switch for how detailed you want everything to be. Apart from that, simulation steps. So the transport steps and the time steps. The time steps means that in between each frame, going from one to the next, it's actually going to subdivide this and simulate steps in between it. So going from 9 to 10, it's not just going to do one step from 9 to 10. It's actually going to subdivide that and do 1 step, 2 step, 3 step before it actually goes over to 10. That just increases the accuracy yet again. This is another one where if you're getting strange artifacts, like if this cube were really, really thin, and this was actually smoke or something like that, and you were getting weird artifacts like little bits of water just coming over this without actually curling around it, that's probably an artifact of there not being enough steps between it. So the minimum time, so by default, Max doesn't actually give you that that ability naturally. It wants to handle it on its own. You just set the minimum and the maximum steps. So transport steps and time steps, both of these are your tools to change that factor. Now, the default settings I've found, again, I find there aren't very many situations where I've had to actually change that too dramatically. Just know that if you are getting artifacts like that, come in here, and this is where you're going to be doing those fine-tunings to get your simulation fairly accurate. So, with that, we have everything set up. Like I said, this is a really fast, apart from my explanations, this is a really fast one to set up. Again, not too involved, not too in-depth. You're not going to be doing anything Hollywood with it. But for personal renders or for simple still scenes or simple animations, this is a perfectly adequate tool. So once you have your parameters set up, once you have your colliders, once you have your solver parameters, your simulation set up, all you have to do is hit Start Solve. Once you're done doing that, once it's done there, I'll get back to you. Alrighty, I've got about 29 frames of cached animation, so about a second's worth, right about what I wanted. And you can see, got a lovely splash effect going on. When it rolls back around, I'm not gonna lie, I actually really like the purple goo look. But yeah, so that's it. That's Max Liquids. It's a decently powerful little tool. If all you're looking for is something simple, just to add a little bit of flair to a project you're working on, it'll get the job done. Obviously not as powerful and not as useful as something as like Phoenix FD or any of those like actual powerful tools, but oftentimes you don't really need something crazy. You just need something that'll get the job done. So, yep, that's it. I'll stop yammering and let you go. Bye.